Welcome back to another YouTube tutorial. Today we are continuing our Christmas in July 4-inch ornaments. For this one today, I'm going to go a little bit more vibrant with the colors, so I am excited about that. We are just kind of going with the flow on the pattern again, which I feel like is more fun for me. So we'll see how it ends up. Again, I'm painting on these 4-inch wood ornaments. I only had time to prep the front this morning, so I still need to paint the back black, but you can see it's natural wood. They have the centers marked. I painted mine using Folk Art multi-surface satin in pure black. I think the black will really make the color palette we're using today pop. But yeah, these ornaments are from Nate Co. You can order them on Etsy. I will link that in the description of the video. And you can use the code TDOTS for 10% off your order and free shipping in the United States. And I will also be using the Thoughtful Dots stylus tools that have the millimeter size right on the handle, making it easy for you guys to follow along. I'm not sure if we'll be using brushes or not, but if we do, it'll be either the Thoughtful Dots rigger brushes or the Thoughtful Dots liner brush set. Also available on Etsy. I will link all of the tools in the description of the video. And then I will be using the dotting rods by Happy Dotting Company. And I'll be using a 7-segment stencil today. I don't think I've ever used a 7-segment stencil, so I'm excited for this. This is part of the Happy Dotting Company set. They just came out with this set of 3 stencils that has a 5-segment, 6-segment, and 7-segment. So I'm excited to, once we finish all of these, to show you guys all of the different patterns, and we can compare the 5-segment, the 6-segment, and the 7, so we can see just kind of how a different segment stencil changes the design look a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I've ever used a 7-segment. I use a 6-segment pretty often, and then we use the 5-segment, which was my first time. So I'm excited to use the 7 today. And again, I will link these in the description. These are awesome, made out of silicone, great for painting on curved surfaces, especially like mugs, plant pots, rocks, anything that has a curve. These are nice because it just kind of molds to the shape. But they're also great for flat surfaces as well. What else? I think that is all as far as tools. If I end up using anything else, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But let's get started. So for this, I'm going to be putting that little X. So I'm putting it over the center dot that is already marked for us. And then this vertical guide mark, I want to go through the hole. That will make sure our pattern is nice and in line when we have it hanging. And I'm just gonna mark all of the vertical guide marks. When I first started painting, I used to do a lot of really vibrant color palettes, mainly on rocks. And I really liked top dotting, like layering the dots to get a really cool, like layered effect. And I'm hoping to incorporate that into today's ornament, as well as rhinestones, because I really want the rhinestones on all of my ornaments, because I just feel like they add that nice sparkle that will look really pretty on a Christmas tree. Now I'm gonna go do the circular guide marks. So I'm hoping to be able to incorporate both layered dots as well as rhinestones. So I want this one to just be really vibrant and fun. Okay, and then I think I will just add another guide mark because you just never know. These ones are kind of spread out for the circular ones, so I just put the pointy end. I'm just going to, so there's this circular guide mark and this circular guide mark, so I'm just going to add one more in between, and I'm just kind of eyeballing the middle. And then we can do one more, just dividing this one in half. To give us a couple more guide marks to work with. And let's do our colors. So I'm basically doing like greenish teal with a pop of pink. So we have green tree, paradise green, peacock teal, fuchsia pop. So that should be fun. Let's start with our green. I'm just putting these into paint palettes. Paradise green. Peacock teal. Fuchsia pop. And I will just call these colors by name today. Fun and vibrant. Okay, let's get started. All right, before we dive into today's video, I just quickly want to tell you about my Thoughtful Dots Patreon membership. If you love mandala painting and want to take your skills to the next level, you won't want to miss all of the amazing information provided to you there. Patreon is where I teach weekly live classes, giving you the chance to watch me paint in real time, ask questions, and interact as we go. As a member, you'll get instant access to a growing library of over 100 on-demand tutorials, ranging from small 4-inch designs to full-size masterclasses, all at your own pace. We have built such a fun and encouraging community by engaging with one another through weekly live classes, monthly color palette challenges, and a 24-hour group chat where you can share your work, ask questions, and connect with others who love this art just as much as you do. You can now try Patreon free for 7 days to explore everything included in your membership before committing. I will put the link in the description of this video, and I hope to see you over there. So for the center dot, I want it to be layered. So basically when I say layered, we'll do one dot, let it dry, and then top dot it with a smaller dot, let it dry, and then top dot it again with a smaller dot. So I'm just thinking of how I want them layered. Probably peacock teal, paradise green, and then top dot it with pink. So we'll start with peacock teal and the number 11, size 11 dotting rod. So there's a little mound in the center there. It kind of looks like there's bubbles in there, but I can't tell. Yep, there was. So just kind of smoothing that out because once it dries, we're going to dot on top of this. So we just want a smooth surface. Now, and so we'll top dot that with paradise green and then pink. And so Now I'm thinking of how I want to layer these ones. So let's start with the 1.5 stylus and the green tree. And we're just starting our rings of dots. Let me get this light a little bit closer. So for these, this one was a little bit small. We just want to try to get them to be all a consistent size. So we're trying to get them as close to one another without actually touching each other. If they touch each other, the paint will run together. And same with the center dot. We want to get it as close to the center dot without touching it. And then as we get to the end here, I'm just kind of eyeballing. I think I can fit about 3, but it's going to be a tight squeeze, so they need to be just a little bit smaller. That ended up working out perfect. Sometimes if they don't line up, you might need to wipe off a couple dots and either space them farther apart or make them like a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller in order to get them to fit whatever spacing you have. Next, okay, let me think about, okay. Next, we're going to use the 1.5 again and the Paradise Green. And we are dotting in between each dot from the previous row. Again, just trying to get these to all be a consistent size. So as I am doing these dots, I'm noticing there's a little bit of a gap in between. So if you want less of a gap, you can make these dots bigger. For the next row, I'm definitely going to make them bigger. So I need to go up in size in order to make sure that that gap in between the dots doesn't get too big. Unless you like the look of the gaps, then you can keep them smaller. These ones started out way smaller and got bigger. So actually I might wipe that up because it's way smaller. So you can see how my dots kind of started out small and progressively got bigger. I didn't notice it, so I just need to make these ones a little bit bigger. So next I will go up in size now to the size 2 and the Peacock Teal color. Now by making these bigger, you can see it kind of closes the gap in between each dot that we're doing. Whereas if you were to use the same tool as the ring before, the dots would be smaller and they would have that large gap in between each dot. Oop, that one was a little big, but it's okay. So that tapping motion that I'm doing, that will help build out the dot. So sometimes when you start, it's a little small, but if you just tap a few times, you can build it out to be bigger. All right, we have our center. Now, I was trying to figure out what color rhinestones. When in doubt, you can just use clear. So I'm using these clear ones from my Etsy shop. And we are going to temporarily place our rhinestones using mounting putty. This is Gorilla Glue mounting putty. It comes in a big sheet, but you just want to temporarily place the rhinestones because you want to varnish your art piece before gluing on the rhinestones. So this will help us paint around the rhinestone shape. And then once it dries, we can take the rhinestones off, varnish the piece, and then glue them on at the very end. So the first rhinestone I want to be on the guide mark that's going through the circle, the hole where we're going to be hanging it. And then we're going to skip every other guide mark. So I might end up swapping out these rhinestones for blue or pink. I have these pink ones, pink iridescent prism. But since I'm not quite sure yet, I'm just using the clear. And then that's also the great part about temporarily placing with mounting putty, is that once it dries, you can take these off and then you can experiment and just temporarily place the different colors and see which color you like best. Oops, that one got a little blue on it. Just wiping that off. pretty. So you can see the 7 segments, and I also call them points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. Kind of creates a 7-point flower. Very pretty. Okay, so now I'm just thinking of what pattern I want to do, if I want to incorporate brush strokes or no brush strokes. It's so hard to decide because you can't really, like, it's so hard for me to envision what it's going to look like. I think I will do brush strokes. Gosh, I wish I could like see into the future. Okay, let's start with the 2.5 stylus and the pink. And we are going to dot a large dot right at the tip of that rhinestone, right on the vertical guide mark. That will help keep our pattern nice and in line. Just gonna wipe that off, and then I'm going to use the 1.5 end and the pink. And we are doing a dot and drag swoosh. So sometimes I have to do these little like draggy motions in order to get it to go all the way down. Just right up against that rhinestone. Love that pop of pink. Okay, now for brush strokes. I think I want to try this 2/0. Thoughtful Dots liner brush. So when doing brush strokes, just remember this vertical guide mark is going between this pattern and this pattern. So if you look at this pattern, It has a guide mark on the left and a guide mark on the right. Those are your boundary lines. So when you're doing your brush strokes, you want to make sure your brush stroke stays within this boundary line. And that will help make sure that your spacing for your brush strokes, that they're not overlapping here, or that there's not too much of a gap. We're going to do, let's do the Paradise Green. And then we want all of the brush strokes to end at the same guide mark. So lots of pressure to make it nice and thick. And then come to a point, but you want to make sure you're staying on the side of your boundary line. That last one might have gone over a little bit, so this one needs to be a little bit thinner. I personally don't like when my brush strokes touch in the center, so I'm always trying to get them as close to one another without actually touching. And then that one's going into the hole. Pretty, pretty. Once we get the top dots on that center dot, it's going to like change the whole look. And I want to do more layered top dot patterns. So let's see, 8.5, maybe 9. So let's use the size 9 dotting rod and the Peacock Teal. And we are going to make a large dot right in between on that vertical guide mark that's going through all of the petal patterns. If you get little ripples in your dot, it just needs a little bit more paint, so you can just hover over the top with more paint to get a nice mound. I might use just a little bit of white pearl, just to give a little bit of a pop. So that's DecoArt Dazzling Metallics White Pearl. And let me think here. So let's Let's do the size 2. And let's do a dot right at the tip on the vertical guide mark. Yeah, I think this white pearl will give it a nice little pop. And then we'll flip that tool over and use the 1.5 end. And walk the dots down. It's funny because you guys might hear that dog barking in all of these videos that I've done, because they drive by every morning at the same time and the dog barks all the way down the street. So dot and then walk the dots down until you run out of paint or until you come to the end there. So next, I'm just trying to decide if I want more of this green color or more of the pink color. Kind of leaning towards green, and then maybe you do like a pink accent. So let's do the 2.5 and the green tree. And let's do a large dot right at the tip of our pattern, right on that vertical guide mark, coming all the way to the edge. So whenever I'm picking colors, I'm just trying to balance out the colors within the pattern. So we haven't used this green since this ring, so we need more green. And then, yeah, whichever colors you want like to pop most, you'll need to use more of. I'm flipping this over and using the 1.5, and we will do a dot and drag, swoosh. So now that draws in more of that green and kind of ties it all together. And then I think we still need a little bit more pinks. Hopefully we can find a way to get more pink in there. But we'll also be adding pink on the top dots, so we have to remember that as well. Love this. Okay. I think I just want to do some like little swooshes right here. They have to be small. But what colors? Maybe so hard. Let's do Peacock Teal, 1.5 and Peacock Teal. We actually could try using a brush, a really small brush. I'm gonna try the size 0. If that doesn't work out, we can just use the tool again, the dotting tool, but I'm just getting a tiny bit of paint. I'm just making like a little comma. So I want these ones to be slightly shorter than the green swoosh. So just a short little snappy brush stroke. These little liner brushes are great for these small patterns on objects like this or rocks. Anywhere where you need a short, small pattern. Rinsing that off. And then I want to do one more using the pink. I feel like that will tie everything together. So just in that little gap. I love these brushes so much. They're just so smooth and crisp. So for these little commas, you want to put pressure and then quickly, like you're putting pressure down and then quickly letting up on the pressure to get a nice little point. Yes, that pink just really made everything pop. I love it. Cute. And then I'm going to grab my Nuvo drops in Ivory Seashell, which is a pearl. If you don't have these, you can just use regular metallic paint, pearl paint. It's a little bit clogged, so let me see if I can poke it. Sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little dot right at the tip. And I think I will just use my micro dotting tool, 0.5. Sorry about that. I thought I had my phone plugged into charge, but I didn't. But all I did was finish off those little dot swooshes at the tip there. And then I was thinking like what I want to do here, and I think I want to add some glitter, so silver glitter. And then we'll probably go in and add like a little top swoosh of glitter in there to tie it all together. So this is Bliss Drops Wasteland. And this is what it will look like dried. So just a nice silver sparkle. So I'm going to make a dot. Oh. On both sides of that swoosh we just did. And then use a stylus. I'm using the one to drag. And this starts out a little more like creamy looking, but it will dry nice and glittery. I guess opaque, it starts more opaque and then it dries more transparent glitter. So if you like the way it looks with the black showing through, you could totally skip this step, because I also like how it looks with the black showing through. But I also think glitter might be fun. And then this is another pattern. Like I love this, how this pattern turned out. So now I can do this pattern in a bunch of other color palettes to make more unique ornaments. All right. And then I want to do some little micro dots using the white pearl. And I'm going to use the size 1 stylus. And I'm just dotting in between in the little gap on that last row, last ring of dots that we did. Okay, and now trying to see if that center dot is dry enough to top dot. For top dots, you just want to make sure the previous dot is dry. Obviously mine's not completely dry, but for the sake of this video, I want to go ahead and top dot. So I'm going to use the size 7. For top dots, you just want a size that's smaller than the original dot. So we did Peacock Teal. So next I'm going to do the Paradise Green. That was a little chunky for some reason. That just looks like it has chunky paint in the center. Another reason to wait for your center to dry is if you mess it up, you can wipe it off. Obviously, I just messed this up, so, because I didn't wait for it to dry. So what I'm going to do is just wipe this up. And then learn from my mistakes and don't top dot on top of wet paint. So I'm going to do the original dot again. And now I'm gonna have to wait longer for that to dry, so my bad. Let's do some little glitter. I'm using the 2/0 rigger brush, and I have just a little bit of that glitter paint here. So I'm going to use that and just go right through the center of the green brush strokes, adding a little bit of a glitter highlight. So you don't want to cover the whole brush stroke, just going right through the center. That's why I like these thin rigger brushes to do top brush strokes. Because if you just use a little bit of paint on the tip of the brush, it makes them nice and thin. Okay, so now we need to just wait a little while for those dots to dry before we do our top dots. So I'll let that dry and I'll be back. All right, I just went ahead and finished this up with the top dots. So as you can see, the first dot we did was Peacock Teal. The second was the Paradise Green. The third was the Green Tree. And then the final is the Fuchsia Pop. So when doing top dots, you just do the first dot, let it dry, do the second one using a smaller either dotting rod or stylus tool than you did the previous, and so on. But this is how it turned out. I need to touch up that little swoosh. I accidentally knocked it with my finger, but here is how it looks. So we will let this completely dry and then varnish it. Dry, wipe off guide marks, take off the rhinestones, varnish, and then glue the rhinestones on. I will probably try, I did end up ordering the DecoArt Duraclear in a gloss. I got the gloss and the high gloss to test out. So that is what I will be using. And then I like to use Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel to glue on the rhinestones. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed that tutorial. I'll show you so far. Let me grab one of the 5 points that we did. So you can see so far with the stencils, we did a so this is the 5-segment stencil, the 6-segment stencil, and now the 7. So you can see how, depending on the stencil that you use, makes a different pattern. Obviously the 5 is gonna have a more spread out pattern. 6, a little bit closer, and then 7, it's going to be a tighter, smaller pattern. But pretty cool. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed these so far. I am planning to do one more of these tomorrow using the 7 segment stencil again. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. If you're interested in more thoughtful dots tutorials, I teach weekly live classes over on my Patreon. I'll be sure to link all of that info in the description of the video, and we will see you next time. Real quick, I swapped out the clear rhinestones with green, and I really like how that looks. You could also use blue. Blue would look really good. And I also have these like fuchsia ones in my Etsy shop that would look good. So yeah, you could definitely play around with the different color rhinestones, but I think I like the green. Okay, just wanted to show you that. Okay, I lied, I'm back again. So I wanted to also try the blue. I actually think I like the blue better than the green. It gives a little bit more contrast, but now you guys are gonna have to vote and let me know in the comment section which rhinestones you guys like better. All of these rhinestones are available in my Etsy shop, by the way. Yeah, let me know in the comments which color is your favorite.